let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is a quick guide. Basically, for background info, Flame wants to make a thing that just basically tells people who are extremely new or have never even really seen much about this game how to watch Overwatch and understand it in a quick amount of time. There are a lot of weird, quirky rules and some issues with the UI that kind of make it a little difficult. But we're going to try to focus. I wrote an outline. We're going to try to focus on the fundamentals here and find out, just try to explain to people who are new or even like people who have played a bit. Maybe they don't know some of these rules I've definitely encountered in ranked. I guarantee you, if you watch this, you'll probably learn something because I don't know why I keep saying I'm not going to hacking ask. You can ask questions in the hacking Twitch chat. Anyway, so we're going to just try to explain to everybody how this game works, some of the basic rules, and if you're watching, how do you actually watch this and have it make some gosh darn sense. So basically, if you've never played Overwatch before, if you're just a new player, you think Mercy's cute, you don't want to but you haven't really looked up the rules, then just if you're feeling stuck in ranked, like maybe just review some of these rules. You'd be like, so many people just don't know some of basic shit I'm gonna go over here today. And overall, this content is being licensed as far as whatever's original to me in such a way that Flame is allowed to steal this. Unoriginal content, please steal. This is a proof of concept for Flame to show that, hopefully show that it can be done. So, let's take a look here. So we're gonna watch some bots play Overwatch while we go over this here. So, how do people even play this game in the first place, right? So the basic thing of Overwatch is that one team has to control a certain space longer or better than the other team. Across all modes, across all game modes, the teams are trying to control space and see who can control it better. And there's basically in one mode there's the teams fight over one area all the time and try to get the control of that. And in other modes, teams take turns trying to finish the map. Like there'll be a map set up, and then one team attacks, one team defends, and then it flips around, and the other team tries that. And basically, whoever gets the most points in the time that they earn will win the match, or in some cases, they can't even tie. The general flow of this game, and even the bots kind of play this way, is that you'll have the attack will want to group up as a group and move together as a group in order to break the defense. They always will want to move in with the same or greater numbers than the defense has available, because anything less than that it's burning time in it. And when you're on attack, you're trying to save time. When you're on defense, you're trying to burn time, is the general rule of thumb in this game. So attackers want to break in, win decisive fights. We'll go over some details in a second, but in general, you want to win like five fights generally to complete a map. And so then, so in good Overwatch, this is always going to be a thing. The attackers are always going to move in. It looks like the bots have moved to phase 2. The attackers are always going to move in as large a group as possible. The defenders are just going to do whatever they can to stay on the point and not concede space, unless it's the point where it's hopeless and it's actually worse to stay on it. So what we're watching here is what's called control. It's also called King of the Hill by the fan base. And the idea with control is that you know what, this actually isn't control. Haha, whatever. So the idea with control, let's actually switch the map here. The idea with control is that the two teams try to take over the same space from each other. We'll go ahead and start a game here so you can kind of see it. And the idea is whichever team, there's 3 different unique maps in each of these control maps. And the team that takes the map first, the team that takes the map to 100 first, or takes the that map to 100 first will get a point, and the first to 5 points wins. Unless you're on quick play, then it's 3. But we're talking about like competitive and high level Overwatch here. So it's a best of 5. You'll play 3 maps. The first team to get to 100 3 times wins. We'll see in a second when the bots start playing. There's 1 point in the center. In fact, I'll even kind of zoom out and see it here. And the teams try to take the point and get to 100. And Kessler is not called 2CP, it is called Control officially. Everyone just calls it... Oh, this is 2CP, yes, okay, sorry, we're behind there. So basically, once again, you have to get to 100 first. You get to 100, you win. There's 3 maps. You'll play all 3 unique maps in a random order, and then if no team has 3 points, it'll pick a random map. And then if still no team has 5 points, it'll pick another random map that isn't the previous one. So it's just random, there's no thing. It is impossible to tie in this mode because eventually one team or the other will control the point. There's maybe some esoteric situation where like nobody ever dies, but that like never happens. So basically we're watching the bots here, they're doing a skirmish. It looks like the red team here pretty much managed to wipe out that blue team. So as you see, they're getting capture percentage at the top there. It's their point now, and they start ticking up. There's a tick about every 1.2 seconds. We'll see how long it takes the bots here, but it usually takes about there's one push happens about every 20 or 25%, depending on how long the fight goes. So as you can see here, it took a few seconds to get the point, and then it's almost 20% exactly for the blue bot team to group up and get control of it here. And hey, how often the bots know what they like. I think did I mention it? So see here, so the blue team managed to overtake it because they were able to kill more of the red team and then actually take control of the point. If there's a red team person pushing. So basically now the blue team has control. If they're on the point, we'll scoot over so we can actually see the red team coming in. If they're on the point, as long as there's anybody from the blue team on the point, the red team will not get any capture percentage, and they won't be able to progress in the map. So in the interest of time, we're not going to watch out this entire map, but this is probably the simplest mode to understand. The team that's winning is the one that has the most points. There is definitely a lot of consideration as far as ult economy and things like that as to when you want to push it. The most important rule of thumb, though, especially those of you trying to improve your own play, the very basic rule on Koth is that you want to have, if you have control of the point, just run to it, stay on it as long as possible, never give it up, run in one by one if you have to, like run in from spawn. If you can make it before they take it, it's usually worth it to go in and stall for more percentage. If, however, you don't have control, never go in without your whole group, ever. Just always go in as 6. This is what you'll see in pro games because that's how you play. The only time you ever go in on attack when you don't have parity or advantage in number of people alive is when there's like 5% left and somebody just has to touch the point in order to trigger an overtime situation. So let's take a look at the next mode. We're going to move on to Assault. There are 4 basic modes, one of which is kind of a combination of 2. We'll go over that in a second, though. So maps, and we'll go over Volskaya. So Assault, also called 2CP for 2 capture point, is it's a mode where it's probably the least popular mode from players and such for a variety of reasons we won't get too much into. But the idea here is that unlike Koth, where everyone's fighting over one area and trying to get the full percentage points, in this mode there's 2 static points and each team takes turns attacking and defending. Every point they get is 1 point. The first time they capture point 1, they get an extra 4 minutes in their time bank, and the idea here is to get more points by capturing more of the points. after the team capture, if the team captures 2 points, the other team captures 2 points. Then they'll keep doing rounds until they run out of time, with the only extra time being awarded being an extra 30 seconds if you capture the first point, so that there's a chance to get the second one even if you're in overtime. So there is kind of an interesting statistic that, generally speaking, in these other game types where you have attack and defense, generally speaking, I believe this is true for 2CP also, the people who defend first tend to have an advantage over the people who would attack first. It seems to be a psychological thing. There's no real mathematical reason that I or anyone's come up with as to why that is. But most popular theories are that if you defend first, you kind of have a watermark that you have to hit in order to attack. But maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. So basically, very simple, right? If it's similar to capturing the point and getting points on control, what you have here is you have to do the same thing. There's capture points on this point down here that we're looking at. The attacking team has to get all the defending team off the point and take it over. There's also an interesting thing where if there's only one attacker on the point with no defenders, it won't capture as fast as 2 or 3. Any more than 3, it's still the same speed though. So we'll see, it looks like our attack team has captured this handily. So notice even the bots, the Roadhog's going on ahead to see if they can get picks, and Bastion's sitting there defending against any defenders that might show up. But they always keep 3 on the point in order to keep the capture speed fast. Even the bots know to do that. So see, now they captured, they get a point, they got an extra 4 minutes, and now they have 7 minutes in their time bank. Can we go through the wall here? So they have 7 minutes in their time bank in order to get as many points as they can, basically. If they capture this point, then they'll switch turns, and then the other team will have a chance. And if they capture 2 points, it'll keep going until someone's out of time, and there's a decisive. Till both teams are out of time, and there's a decisive winner. So there's stats-wise, so similar to King of the Hill, you want to have you don't want to come in and push with anything less than a full team. You want all 6 people. You want to try to give yourself the best advantage you can if you're trying to do a push. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time with the defenders will just pick you off, and you'll never actually control it. The defenders, meanwhile, if they're on the second point here, because the second point is a lot harder to get than the first point. Because if you notice, just figured how to get out. Just figured how you actually get out of. That just zooms out. Okay, whatever. So you notice these defenders are coming back from spawn, which is very close to the point, and it's the same spawn. So if the attackers manage to kill a defender here, the defenders have to get out right away. And the defenders are able to get out a lot quicker. There's a relatively new rule where if there's 1, 2, or 3 attackers on the point, the defenders will have a few extra seconds of spawn time. So it is advantageous for the attacking team to get on the point and to get at least 3 people on it, so that if they do get kills, they don't come out as quickly. But generally speaking, the first point's a bit easier to capture because attacker spawn is closer to it, and the second point is easier for it to defend because the defender spawns closer to it. If you're just trying to read, if you join in a game just trying to read it, figure out what's going on, you can kind of look. So right here we're in a situation where the red team has 1 point and they have about 5 minutes left in their bank. So that's a good amount of time. It takes about 45 seconds, a minute 15, somewhere in there for a push to fully resolve itself, depending on a lot of things. It can be a little longer or shorter even, depending on things that happen. But there's 10 seconds of respawn time, and there's, takes a good, another 10 seconds to walk back and all that as well. But generally speaking, a minute or so is about a push. So you kind of consider, all right, so the red team here has 1 point, but they have 4 minutes, and so it's about 3 or 4 pushes in order to try to capture the point, which it looks like they have here. So now they have 4 minutes left, which is a good amount of time for the next round if the blue team manages to capture 2 points. So the red team is in a pretty good position there. They have a lot of time left, and they have, they completed the map. So this is, however, a mode that is extremely prone to ties. It's very easy for the fights to go, the last push, it goes into overtime. If somebody's touching a point, even when the time bank runs out, it won't end the map. It'll go into overtime. And so if you want, basically the overtime will tick down. It starts at a few seconds and then gets shorter and shorter as time goes on. And as long as somebody on attack is touching the point, or we'll see later payload, that overtime, like the round will keep going until all the attackers are cleared. So that will, that doesn't count against time bank or anything. But if you win in overtime, then you're out of time, and then it's up to the score that the other team gets to determine the outcome. So it's very prone to tie because if both teams are pretty good and have pretty even strategy, it's pretty likely that they're both going to capture the same amount of points within their time bank. Or both teams are just really bad, neither can attack. If you play ranked Overwatch, you will experience that. We're like, well, I guess we're both bad. So that's 2CP. Let's move on to some of the more popular game modes. Although Koth is quite popular. So we're going to change the map. Let's go to, I believe next is Escort, yes. We're going to do classic. Does this go back? Let's find out. This is Volskaya. Okay. So far the modes we talked about, there's been 2 static points that you have to attack or defend, and or fight for control of. The hybrid is a different kind, where you have a payload, which we can see right here, that needs to be pushed all the way through the map of the payload and across various checkpoints in order to complete a map. There's a you get 1 point for every checkpoint. So you see where it says A here. This is the first checkpoint on this particular map. But also the distance matters. So if you push it, if one team pushes it like right here or something, the next team has to push it past that point, just barely past that point to win. And you'll have point 2 here. So it says B. That's the second point, and then you keep going. Those gates open when at the time that you push the payload there, and then it goes on to point C here, and then that's the end of the map. So this is a pure payload mode. Very difficult to tie, since it's basically, if one team pushes an inch further than the other, then they win. So it's very rare to tie, because very rarely will both teams actually get will like never touch the payload or something. So every time on the first run through of a map, the first when you hit a checkpoint, you get the attacking team gets a couple more minutes. I forget the exact amount offhand. You start with 4, you get I think 2.5 minutes or something per capture. So the bots here don't really play like human players tend to. Usually this beginning area, it's not very advantageous to spawn camp. Usually people will stay up, the defenders will stay up here on a high ground and try to get on to pick off attackers, and they have some cover here they can stand behind. And this little archway down here is a good spot to hold. You can hold here and in this little room here. And then if the defenders can control where the attackers' routes and try to pick them off as they come in. And there's various choke points like this that will kind of make up most of the spectating. Is you'll notice that on these maps, you'll notice certain points that the defenders will tend to hold. So just kind of generally speaking, something I learned researching for this is that somebody did some analysis of most of like the pro games, and found out that there's about enough time for about 9 team fights that'll happen during the course of during the course of one of these maps. And if the attacking team wins about 5 of them, they'll finish the map on average. As you can see, as you might have noticed, if similar to the 2 capture point maps, here's where the attacker spawns at the very beginning, and the payload's right there. However, the spawn location, the attacker spawn keeps moving up. After they capture the first point, they'll spawn from over here. And then if the attacker spawn keeps getting moved up to go with the new checkpoint, and then the defender spawn will start. The defender spawn keeps getting moved closer as well. Or the defender spawn gets moved closer, but not as close to the point where ultimately, let me show you on this particular map. You will, like, the defender spawn just straight out of here and this side, and this is the payload path right here. So at the very end, just like on the 2 capture point maps, you'll have the attackers have to have a very decisive victory in order to capture the map, and they might have to actually win 2 team fights in a row back to back in order to actually get the defenders off the point long enough in order to win. There's some other interesting things about the payload. Let's go look back at our bots, see what they're up to. They still haven't really pushed past this choke. So so one thing that'll happen is if the attackers don't touch the payload in a certain amount of time, the payload will start rolling backwards slowly, but it won't go past one of those aforementioned choke points. Kind of wish these bots were a little better. Yes, see how the attackers are kind of coming in one by one, and the bots are just picking them off. So this is how you lose Overwatch games. And if you remember, the payload was kind of at the bottom of the pit. Now it's up here because it keeps getting moved backwards. So and similar to the capture speed on the points, if there's 3 attackers or there's 3 attackers or more on the payload, it will push the payload faster than 2 or 1. More than 3, that's as fast as it goes. Another trivia that a surprising amount of people don't know is the attackers will get a small healing over time effect when they're touching the payload. So that's a small advantage that attackers get. And then that's good to know if you're especially for DPS or something. It's an advantage of staying on the payload. Your healer gets picked off. You can use it for cover while you're healing. So, and then what other points did I want to go over? So on this mode, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's nearly impossible to tie. You saw here the attackers did a horrible job. They didn't group up, and they didn't push together. They just ran in one by one and got picked off by bot Zenyatta and bot Bastion, and so they didn't push it very far. So it's pretty likely in this case that that this other team is going to win, because all they have to do is hit this golden parking space right here. So if you remember, they were kind of fighting over on this point, but the golden parking space that the attackers now have to hit in order to win this map is only this far. Is this far because they did manage to get it this far at one point, but it eventually rolled backwards. So the farthest that they push the cart is what the attackers now have to achieve rather than the closest. And a quick note about the team colors. This might as well kind of see if this plays out real quick. So generally speaking, when a match starts, you'll have the blue team starts as defenders and the red team starts as attackers. However, the team colors don't change if they switch attack or defense. So if you have now we're on the second round where we flipped attacker and defender for the first time. This blue team is now on attack, and kind of a little tip. I don't know if I'll just show my mouse. Neat. Is that where it says prepare to attack up here? It's always talking about the blue team. It's kind of a weird quirk of the UI and a trick for figuring out what's even going on. More handy if you could read Korean, which I can, thankfully, because some of the tournaments you might want to watch are in Korean. But the yeah, Subi and Gonghyuk. Anyway, so basically these instructions are always like if the blue team was actually playing, which is kind of a weird quirk, but a good little tip. And if you'll notice on this thing up here, this is the payload progress and how far it's been pushed. And we have this little orange marker here is how far the blue team. Why does this keep turning on? Is how far the blue team needs to push this payload in order to win the map. But it looks like the blue team's just... Was the red team? I might have gotten confused because I keep restarting and it does weird things, but what I speak to is generally true for these pro matches. But as you can see, the bots are having a hard time and can't even get past point 1 with each other because they're not grouping up. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the blue team is on tack. So they did wait a second. For some reason, bot Roadhog like flanked behind everybody. So now we have the blue team is on attack. That was correct. Just that Roadhog was in confusingly far out of position. So nope, they almost have it to the golden parking spot, and there we go. So now the entire match is done because the attackers did not push it very far. They didn't even get 1 point, and the game's over because all they had to do was push it there, which isn't too hard to do generally.
They look like Widowmaker nails.
I want those.
The Roadhog GG. The bots are funny. So yeah, payload's pretty fun. Basically, whoever pushes it farther. I know when Flame was trying to go over this, he kind of lamented that the not going to show us bot play of the game. But when Flame's going, they kind of lamented that the uh-oh. There we go. They lamented that there isn't like a ghost payload that you can see that will actually like tell you roughly like where the one team is for the other. So let's go ahead and go ahead to the next mode, which is hybrid. So far we've gone over, ones where you capture a point, one where you move a payload. However, there's another mode where you do both. So let's go over probably one of the earliest and best maps.
That's just a weekly. That's nothing. There's Combo Breaker in May.
So this map contains elements of both modes. At the very beginning, there's a point that needs to be captured in order to basically spawn a payload, and that then must be and score 1 point. And then that payload must be pushed to the end, and there's one checkpoint and the finish line that are worth 1 point each. And similar to payload, whoever pushes the cart the farthest and scores the most points is the winner of the match. It is actually possible to tie on this mode, however, because if both teams get stuck with the same amount of points but then don't manage to capture the initial point at the beginning that spawns the payload, then it'll cause issues. So similar to the other things, the defenders have kind of a far back spawn. They get like a minute to set up and defend it for the first time, but they have kind of a long ways to walk to defend, whereas if you notice the attacker spawns like right here, so they don't have to move very far. There's a nice little choke point right here that everyone will try to go to. And then this blue square, they have to capture this the same way that you have to capture on 2 capture point in order to spawn a payload. And maybe if we're lucky, the bots will show us that. But as the map progresses, much like the other modes, you'll get there's actually kind of a gnarly situation that can happen on this map in particular, where after the attackers capture this point, their new spawn point's about over here. And then the distance until the first payload, the first choke point, goes all the way through this windy street, down, 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 around this corner, past the subway, and here we go. See where it says checkpoint right there? They have to go all the way that far. And if the defenders manage to keep the cart like right here or something like that, that's a really long way for the attackers to go in order to get to like capture that final percentage. So I've lost some pretty close games because we did pretty good overall, but the defenders managed to defend just right there. So that's some of the things you can look for when you're trying to like look at an Overwatch game, understand what's going on. Is where are they? Where are the spawns? Where are the how much time do they have, and how much distance do they have to go to get the next checkpoint and go for the next area? So you see, after they capture that, this payload is spawned just like the other one. It heals. It's moved. So the bot's doing a particularly nasty trick with the character Mei, who can freeze enemies and put herself in an ice block where she's invulnerable. So really generally an advantageous character for the defenders to have, since she can stop the payload for free. And just like the other ones, the defenders want to stop this payload as much as possible, right? So the attackers, if they don't have control of the payload, they're going to want to group up and try to get all of the defenders off at once. Because if there's even one defender alive, then the defense is winning. In general, as a tip for all players, if you are on defense, you just keep that in mind. You always want, if you're going to die, go to the payload and just die there. Go to the point and just die there, and try to stay alive as long as possible, because that burns more time, and that means you're more likely to win, because that's your job on defense, is to just burn the attacker's time as much as possible. So since this mode is pretty similar to the others, I kind of also want to take a second to go over some of the more interesting rules. Kind of harder to set up examples for this, but so bear with me here. But we're gonna have, so as I mentioned, you can complete a map, right? So, but you'll still have time over at the end, and both teams complete the map, but they have time over. It doesn't just like give whoever has most time a win or something like that, because there's a lot of reasons. Blizzard's very against it for some good reasons, but basically it favors certain speed team comps and makes it a lot harder to balance the game. So so if you finish a map, whoever has the most time left will be on defense, and whoever has the least time left will go on attack. And it doesn't matter if they just attacked. Whoever has the least amount of time will be on attack first, and then they exhaust their timer getting as many points or payload progress as they can. And then it will be, however, they will not get any additional time after for various checkpoints and things. So if they're in overtime and they get the first checkpoint, then it stays in overtime and there's no additional time added. So it makes for some pretty fun and intense matches sometimes, where all the attackers are standing on the payload and trying not to move off or die under any circumstances. And then both teams go through that. Whoever has the most time, whoever has the most points and combination of points and payload distance at the end will win the match. And it is possible, if both teams push to the end, say, and then neither manages to capture the first point and spawn the payload, neither team is going to win. They just tie. And there is a system probably forthcoming that they're experimenting with right now, where the capture percentage on the points matters, in which case ignore all the stuff about ties, because that's going to pretty much negate them unless nobody ever touches the point. There's also some kind of interesting rules regarding the time bank as well. So if they manage to finish this map and they have more than 1 minute left, then nothing really changes. Both teams have more than a minute, they play with their time bank. If a team has time left, but it is less than 1 minute, in order to make it not silly, they will bump that team up to 1 minute, but they'll also give the other team the amount of time that was added in order to reach 1 minute. So that, because it takes about a minute to do a push or two, so it makes the game a lot more exciting that way. These bots are funny. So if you have no time left, however, You'll get into what's called, so one team has time left and the other team doesn't, and they both finish a map. You'll get into a situation called final attempt. And it's not terribly common, but it does happen. And basically, that means that whichever team has no time left can't win at this point, but they can tie, assuming that they can manage to keep the team that has time left from actually capturing the point. And then if the and then the attacking team, if they do manage to capture the point and spawn the payload, or capture the first point and two capture point, then they will actually, then they will have, they will win the game.
Hello.
I think that's good timing. This is about the end of. That's the basic rules of the game and how the time bank works. And there's one more thing I want to go over. It's since it's kind of a large subject. Overwatch is a character that has a lot of different modes, a lot of different a lot of different characters. Sorry, has a lot of different abilities. It takes a bit even to just learn them. Like when I first started, I would go and play like a quick play game or go to the training room and try every character to see what their ability does. It takes a while to learn that. But as you watch, you'll kind of get a feel for that. But since that is a large subject, we're not going to go over it right now. But basically, if you're just trying to watch and understand the game, it's good to know that a big feature of Overwatch is called ultimate abilities. It's kind of what sets it apart from pretty much any other like first-person shooter. About the only thing even kind of close is in Team Fortress 2. There's the overcharge mechanic that the medic has, but otherwise ults are more like kind of a MOBA thing, but it's done a little differently. Ults are built by doing damage to other characters, healing yourself or teammates, and also just there's a passive amount of ult generated over time. And if after this clock is done ticking and the match actually starts, you'll notice everybody starts going 1, 2, 3. Each character builds ults at different rates. Like Zarya, for instance, has a really good ult that takes a while to build. Maze similarly is pretty good, doesn't take as long to build, but can take a bit of time. Whereas nobody's playing Tracer has a little like pulse bomb ability, and it's pretty hard to stick consistently, but can be built pretty quickly since it's not as hugely powerful, but it can and takes some skill to land, but getting into character balance, but it can be a lot more dynamic, and she can build it a lot quicker. In the game, the games are good. And there's different types of ults. There's support ults that are more defensive. I don't know if you noticed the robot dude with the big glowing aura. It's an ability that heals everybody within there at an extremely fast rate, so they're almost unkillable, unless they take a lot of damage extremely quickly, things like that. Turn off. So big thing now, we see this match start. We see this McCree has hit a lot of shots. They almost have an ult, so they're gonna have an ult pretty soon. The Zarya hasn't done so well. They basically only have like a little bit. This little on fire thing is an indicator of how well someone's doing generally, or racking up kills. So you notice they have a lot higher ult percentage because they did a lot more. They shot a lot more. And then as soon as one of them, see this Bastion here actually got ult already, so they have that ult, and they just used it, so it went back down to 0. But that little check mark means it's ready. So one thing you can kind of tell when you look at a game is you can take a look quick. Oh, does everybody have glowing check marks? So they have ult advantage, and basically there's a lot that goes into like what ults you use when and how they combo and things like that. But the more ults is generally better than the thing I was reading right before doing this said that using ults tends to, if you use an ult, you'll win a fight like 60 or 70% of the time, versus not using an ult. So if the other team doesn't, so that's so you see like that glowing circle. So they see this ability, like everybody on the red team there, like they're hard to kill because they're getting healed super fast while staying in there. So if teams have ults available, more ults available, they're generally able to do more, and it's more likely they'll win a fight. There's a lot that goes into when to use them and the economy of it. But if you're just trying to like hop into a game and see what's going on, you can generally see, oh, so the defenders, since the blue team's on attack right now, they have their Roadhog has ult, and their Zarya is close in ult. Zarya has a really good ult that actually goes really well with Roadhogs. So it's pretty likely that if they use that combo, they'll probably win the fight. But the blue team just blew a whole bunch of ults, so they might actually have a chance. So we don't know until it actually happens. But that's how you generally get a feel for what the state of the game is and for what's going on. And of course, there's stuff up here like the health and everything, so you can see the kill feed, so you can see who did what. And as you play the game and understand what the abilities are, you like this. The kill feed will make more sense. But the Flame has an excellent video on the characters and the abilities you can watch if you want to learn more about that. So I hope this is a good overview, and I hope even those who are somewhat experienced with the game might have picked up on something they didn't learn before. So at the end, just remember, if you want to drive drunk, the good way to do that is to go drive bumper cars. If you need to jump off a tall edifice, it's a good idea to bring a proper parachute and use proper parachuting technique. And if your friends want to do that, help them with that, make sure. And also, at the end of the day, if your friends really need you to watch anime for them, be there for them and watch anime, and you'll be a good friend. Otherwise, well, what are you doing if you won't watch anime for your friends? So thank you very much, and I hope this was instructional. And Flame, steal this content, clean it up a bit, and make a good ass educational video.